PGA Tour just watched the downfall of LIV Golf. Saudi money was pulled. No more TV deals. No future. 4 years of war and the Tour won every single battle. So why does the most powerful organization in professional golf look more rattled today than it did the week LIV launched? The truth is that something is shifting inside that locker room right now. Something the Tour is not addressing publicly. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why 5 names, real names, names that matter to this product, are already having conversations that should keep the Tour's front office up at night. To understand why those conversations are even happening, you first need to understand what the Tour just did to the players who stuck around. This panic was not created from the outside. Nobody came in and attacked the PGA Tour. Nobody poached their stars with a check they could not refuse. The Tour manufactured this situation entirely on its own. And when you see how they did it, the panic makes complete sense. Honestly, I think the Tour did this to itself. Won the war and then treated the people who fought it like they were replaceable. Drop your take in the comments. I want to know if you see it the same way. And if this is the kind of coverage that actually gets inside what is happening on tour, rather than just reporting the surface. Hit subscribe. This channel is for fans who follow this sport every single day. So the decision that triggered all of it is one most fans have not connected to the full picture yet. Stay with this. Rolapp is at the center of it. The PGA Tour's new CEO arrived with a restructuring vision for 2028, cleaner schedule, bigger events, sharper product. Reasonable on the surface. But buried inside that plan is a proposal that has been quietly burning through the locker room since the moment it leaked. Split the Tour into 2 levels, a top tier of elite events sitting above everything else. Marquee names play the marquee events. Organized, streamlined, television-friendly. Except one clause inside that proposal changes the entire conversation. Players locked into the top tier could be restricted from competing outside it. Restricted. Not discouraged, not advised against it, told no. Picture what that means in practice. Scottie Scheffler, world #1, the single most important player on this tour right now. He wants to play the CJ Cup Byron Nelson in Dallas, his backyard, a tournament with personal meaning to him. Under this plan, the organization that spent 4 years asking for his loyalty could turn around and tell him he is not permitted to enter. The face of the entire tour being told by the tour where he is and is not allowed to compete. Not because of form, not because of fitness. Because of a television's scheduling structure designed to benefit the front office. That is not a scheduling disagreement. That is a betrayal of trust. And trust, once it fractures inside a locker room, does not stay quiet. One rule change would have been enough to start a fire. They introduced 2 at the same time, already sitting in the background making players uncomfortable. The ball rollback is now moving forward. A rule cutting driving distances by around 15 yards for the biggest hitters on tour, targeting a 2028 implementation. Justin Thomas said what most of the locker room was already thinking. The majority of players out here do not believe there is a problem with the golf ball in the first place. The Tour's response to that pushback was to launch a player survey, not to pause the plan, not to open a genuine dialogue. A survey to measure and manage how angry their own members had become about a decision that was already in motion before the survey was ever sent. Both moves landing at the same time, both carrying the same message to every player who turned down LIV money, who stayed when leaving would have been easier, who backed this institution publicly when it cost them something. Your voice is noted, not required. Disillusionment, that is what is sitting in the PGA Tour locker room right now. Not open rebellion, not chaos, something quieter and far more dangerous. Because disillusionment does not announce itself. It does not hold a press conference or post on social media. It just makes people start quietly weighing their options. And weighing options is exactly what some of them are doing. LIV is supposed to be dying. So why are they suddenly more relevant to frustrated PGA Tour players than they have been in 2 years? Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has poured over $5 billion into this project since 2022. No realistic path to profit, no meaningful television deal in a major market. No clear continuation without funding that is no longer guaranteed. Some of LIV's biggest names are genuinely facing the possibility of being without a tour by the end of 2026. The league that was going to revolutionize professional golf is now fighting just to stay on the calendar season to season. On paper, the PGA Tour should be celebrating. Rival gone, war over, clean slate. Instead, they are scrambling. Except LIV did something smart before the money ran out. They stopped selling what they could no longer afford to sell and started selling the one thing the PGA Tour had just made extraordinarily valuable. Freedom. No forced schedule. No tier restrictions dictating your events. No rollback threatening the game you have spent your entire career building. For a player already feeling controlled by his own organization, that is not a desperate pitch from a collapsing league. That is a genuinely attractive alternative. And the timing could not be more perfectly placed. Phil Mickelson went after Akshay Bhatia directly, multiple approaches, all rejected. Min Woo Lee said no, Sunjae Im Siwoo Kim said no. Those refusals are real and they matter. But every public rejection shares one thing in common. It became public. Discussions that stay private, the ones where no statement gets released and no social media post gets written, those are the ones the tour's front office should be focused on. What gets announced is never what is actually serious. The silence is where this story lives. LIV has open spots for 2026. Active recruitment is ongoing across both the PGA Tour and DP World Tour right now. No confirmed agreements yet, but the discussions are happening. And the players involved are not journeymen looking for a lifeline. These are established names with leverage, with options, and with something they did not have 2 years ago. A legitimate reason to seriously consider using them. 5 names, that is the number sources are pointing to. 5 PGA Tour players whose presence genuinely moves the needle for this product, who are not brushing these discussions aside the way they would have in 2023 or 2024, none confirmed publicly yet. But the fact that the number exists, that it is known internally, that it is already being spoken about in the same breath as the rule changes, that is the story the tour does not want told right now. Because once loyal players start listening, the question stops being about LIV. It becomes about what this tour has turned into. When the players who chose the institution over the money, who sat in rooms defending it, who absorbed years of public criticism for staying, when those players start quietly picking up the phone, something fundamental has broken. It is not about contract value anymore. It is about whether the organization they chose still sees them as members or as assets to be scheduled and managed. Rory McIlroy spent more credibility defending this tour than almost any other player alive. He took the public's stance when it was uncomfortable. He sat in the difficult meetings. He put his name directly on the line. And the tour's answer to that level of commitment has been a restructuring plan built almost entirely without genuine player input. June 2026 is when Rolapp delivers the full announcement. That single moment either de-escalates everything that has been building or accelerates it past the point of easy recovery. If it lands without real structural concessions to player concerns, those 5 discussions become serious negotiations. More names get added to that list, and the tour will have pulled off something genuinely remarkable, driving its most loyal players toward a dying rival simply by making them feel like their commitment was never actually valued. Winning a war means nothing if you lose the locker room in the peace. 1 month. That is all the time left before this either gets resolved or gets permanent. I think Rolapp understands what is at stake. The real question is whether the tour moves fast enough before June arrives and those conversations stop being quiet. Does he land this right, or has the damage already gone too deep to pull back? Tell me what you think in the comments. I read every single one. Coverage that gets inside what is actually happening on tour every week. That is what this channel is built for. Subscribe if that is why you are here.